Say, man, I want to welcome you to another episode of Dirty Politrikz. In case y'all trying to figure it out, man, it's Chuck Marler, the five-star general, with special guest tonight, Colleen Vera. I want to start this off and then we can get off into it, Chuck. I want to thank Dimitri and Donovan for the time that they spent on the war zone, been over a year. They decided they would do something else, and I applaud them. Go do what you do. Y'all that want to follow them, make sure you keep following them. They got good information, and you can keep learning from them and keep doing great things. As far as the war zone, man, we don't rebrand. We don't rebrand the war zone. We just retool it and keep moving. I've been doing this for 9 years. Next year will be 10 years I've been doing this. Started with the hood CNN, and we're gonna keep rocking, doing what we do. So if you take your eyes off of us, then I can promise you, you're gonna miss it, bruh. You're gonna miss it. And we got some stuff coming down the pike. Like tonight, you're gonna get enlightened tonight on Dirty Politrikz. Chuck, what's going on, my friend?
Hey man, just digging into stuff as usual.
Yeah, you really be starting good trouble, man. You the epitome of good trouble, bro. So tonight we started a conversation last week about some of these ballot harvesters and what they do. And if y'all have been watching the show, you've seen Colleen Vera on the show before. And Colleen is somebody that has done a lot of research on ballot harvesting and has gone out and found the information to where we don't look like we crazy when we talking about certain things. Now I know a lot of people want to say that cheating in elections, oh, it's not happening. Yes, it is happening. And in the state of Texas in Harris County is happening at a degree that would really shock you. It would really shock you with the things that we know that some of us have found. And Colleen was one of those people, just a regular tax-paying citizen that decided she would dig off into this stuff and see what she could come up with. And when I say this lady found a treasure trove, I'm talking about a treasure trove. So tonight, if you want to stay tuned in and you want to learn how they beating you out your democracy, then you at the right place. You are at the right place. So Chuck, go on and lead us into the conversation and let's get to it, my friend.
Okay, so we've got some audio recordings of people that I interviewed that had no clue that somebody was either voting for them or that their deceased relatives were being used. In other words, people were getting paid to vote for their deceased relatives. And so who they voted for, we don't know. Who they voted for, we don't care. But what we do care is that they're cheating the system, which waters down everybody else's vote. So in other words, if you're going to the bar and you're getting Crown and Coke and you find out that they threw even more water in your drink, you're getting ripped off and they're charging you full price. And so that's what we've got going on here. Colleen, tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, I'm just an old retired teacher. And after 2018, when I saw a video online that was posted by Direct Action Texas showing a ballot harvester going into a nursing home in Harris County for the Harold Dutton campaign and getting an elderly voter just to sign her mail ballot and mark Harold Dutton and walk out of the room, it kind of upset me. I was like pretty shocked because I really thought we were pretty clean in Harris County. You see this stuff happening in San Antonio and down in the valley and in Dallas, but that kind of stuff doesn't happen here. But the video showed that I was dead wrong. So I started figuring out how might we be able to prove it. So I did an open records request to find the documents, the actual applications for ballot by mail. And we started seeing repetitive patterns in the handwriting in 2018. And we turned it over to the Secretary of State and Attorney General. But at the time, we didn't realize that there was a statute of limitations of 24 months. And we had waited the 22 months required by law to actually see the ballots themselves, to actually show that it affected the ballots. Because in one precinct where we had 30 identical applications in the same handwriting, we had 30 identical ballots. And there were over 100 people in that race, and even the check marks on every single ballot was exactly the same. but we didn't realize that there was a time limit and we had to hurry. And so we took our time and we had missed the statute of limitations. So this time in 2020, we did the same open records request, but we did it for on a broader scale. And you know those shows that always talk about how you wait for the criminals to make a mistake? I love those true life crime movies. But anyway, what we found, if you can see this here, this is an envelope that over 106 applications came in. And when you get the application, you actually get the front of the envelope. And so we saw this repetitive over and over again, this same envelope. And if you notice, it says Gloria Palmer is the person that is on the return address. And when we did our research in 2018,
that name just keeps coming up.
Doesn't it? Yes. Well, in 2018, we had found that she was the very first person to pick up stacks of 50 or more applications for ballot by mail from our county clerk's office. And at the time, she said that she was picking it up for U.S. Representative Sheila Jackson Lee. And it showed that Sheila Jackson Lee's campaign had been paying her at that time. So we started looking at the over 106 that came in this envelope. And thanks to Chuck, what we first wanted to do was just look at the signatures. We were trying to see, does it really look like the voter signature? Because that's what the ballot board does. We compare the signature on the application to the signature on the ballot. And if they look like they could be written by the same person, then we approve it. So we thought, well, we'll look at the signatures. And because you can look at the people's signatures online from, probate documents or their property documents, if they're a criminal, then on their criminal records. So we started searching for that. And most of them look like they could be. But what was strange is we started to find some voters, like the husband remarried. So where did she go? It's like, wait a minute, this isn't the lady's name. And they still live in the same house, but the wife has a different name now. And it's like, that's weird. So we found a couple of these weird anomalies and we sent it to Chuck and said, can you help us? Because we don't really know. Maybe they got divorced. I don't know. And then Chuck comes back with them and says they're deceased. And one of the ladies, her name is Kathleen Huey. And it seems this was her application. Looks like a genuine application for ballot by mail in 2020 Democrat primary here. Only when you look at the documents and find out that the lady passed away in 1991. So that's quite a while ago. For some reason, she was never removed from the voter rolls, and somebody attempted to get a ballot in her name in 2020. And we found 4 of those people that were deceased. And I think the one that makes me the most upset is the one, he served our country in the Korean War. And he's buried in our national cemetery in 2016. And someone stole his identity and attempted to get a ballot by mail in his name. We still don't know if these people voted or not, because our lovely county clerk, when it got taken over by a county administrator, they quit scanning both sides of the ballot, which sounds a little fishy. All these years, they've always scanned both sides of the ballot envelope. So when it was mailed, when it was received, all that kind of stuff, if you did an open records request. But that's not available anymore unless we want to pay an extra $1,000 for the information. So right now we don't have that yet, but we will be getting it. But what we've done is we've gone to the Secretary of State and Attorney General with the crime of applying for a ballot by mail in someone's name without their knowledge, because we don't want to wait and miss the statute of limitations this time. So that's a basic summary.
So the people that are applying for these ballots, like the one you showed us, who applied for the ballot?
All we know is who mailed it. The Gloria Palmer's name is on the return address.
Okay.
Some other ones have been like this one, Jesse Burks, who passed away in 2015. Jesse Burks, it says right here that it was witnessed by a lady named Tomar Bishop. And so Tomar Bishop signed that she witnessed him signing this. And then the Gloria Palmer's name is on the envelope itself. We did find one other person in this envelope of 106. His name is Ray Jones, and he had also signed as a witness for someone whose daughter said that she could not have possibly have signed that because she died that day. So it just keeps ballooning, and
with him,
yes,
with Ray Jones, one of the people that works for me talked to one of his relatives, and he had filled out an absentee ballot for one of his elderly relatives who had no clue that he did that, and she had filled out her own ballot and mailed it in. So he's cheating his own family.
Yeah, we found a number of these seem to be related as aunts and uncles and things like that. Man, my mother would kill me if I stole her brother's or sister's ballot. But we are finding people that went and voted in person, and they had no idea that anybody had ever applied for a ballot by mail in their names.
And Colleen, what happens when two absentee ballots come in the mail at different times?
The very first one that is approved is the one that's counted. If another one comes in later, and as a ballot board, we get a second one, we can't accept that because that voter has already voted. We've already opened up that ballot and it's been on to be counted. So even if we know it's fraud, we can't count the honest one because we've already counted a ballot in that person's name. Another thing that's been really interesting is we've been trying to figure out, it looks like maybe some of these people didn't actually vote. So why are they applying for all these ballots if they're not going to use them all? And then we thought, well, let's go look and see who actually voted. So that was another document that I sent you. And it was fascinating because we got the official list of names of who voted in the Democrat primary in 2020 in our county, and then the official list who voted in the Republican primary. And we sorted it by precincts, and then we looked at how many official ballots were actually counted in each precinct. So we have how many voters voted by mail in that precinct and how many ballots were counted in that precinct. And in the Democrat primary, we have over 400 ballots, more ballots than we have names. And the Republican primary, we have about 30. So it's something's wrong here. What we're thinking is maybe they're putting them in envelopes in precincts that don't match the name of the voter because they have the signature of that voter. But we haven't been able to prove that yet. We're not quite sure. We just can't figure out where extra 400 and something ballots came from if we don't have names to go with those ballots.
So let me ask a question, so that people can understand, because they've been hearing about voter fraud. They feel like the Republicans are doing it because Trump lost the election. How does this realistically affect elections? Because I need people to understand that when voter fraud is happening, somebody's deciding to play kingmaker. Somebody's deciding who should be in office, who should represent you. But yet, when you come out of your house into your community, it doesn't feel like or look like it's being represented. So how bad is this when the fraud actually occurs and it affects these people?
Well, sorry, I don't have an answer for that because I'm doing the paper research part. But what we are finding is the people that are getting caught, that's not Republican or Democrat, they're just going with whoever will pay them the most.
There it is, right there.
Yes, it is not an issue of party. It's just who will pay them. And a matter of fact, what some of the information we got originally was from very honest Democrat candidates. They were tired of having someone else hire the harvester in the primary, and so they couldn't win. So they tried using the courts and all that kind of stuff, and they handed us a lot of information. I even got an anonymous letter that gave me the names of the people that I could contact, and one of them was you, Jerry. It actually said people that actually know what's going on. I mean, I don't know all these people. I'm just looking at documents. I'm just looking at handwriting that looks the same or repetitive patterns like we do when you grade papers in school. But
well, maybe that's a question for Chuck. You know, how when they're stealing elections, How does this affect the community, man?
So if you don't have to really work to win your election, so in other words, if the elections a lot of times are tight in districts, and if it's a 4 or 5% swing, and you can cheat and get 10% ahead of time in the absentee ballots, then you don't have to really work that hard to win your election. If you don't have to work that hard to win your election, who are you working for? You're not working for the citizens because you're not working to get their votes. You're working for the money. In other words, your money because you paid for the ballot harvesters, or some corporations that paid for the ballot harvesters. So in other words, if you're not trying to get the people's vote, you're not representing the people, you're representing money. So is that money you getting richer? That's the money you're representing? Or are you representing a corporation's money or a business's money that paid for ballot harvesters to go out and steal that 10% of the vote?
And if you're in an election where it doesn't take a lot of votes, say a school board election, because school board elections don't garner a lot of votes, you can get about 2,000 bad mail-in ballots where they didn't harvest these ballots. Your election run is over when they count them.
Right.
It's done. So the smaller the number, the worse the outcome.
Right. And so why would some higher up public officials want their individuals in the school districts in those positions? Because HISD is one of the largest school districts, the most wealthy school districts in the country. It has more money than almost any other school district in the United States. Okay. There is millions upon millions of dollars spent on contracts. Okay.
Yes.
If you can get a contract with HISD to do something, it's probably going to be a $1 million contract and up. So if you get in one of those positions and you can push around contracts, you're not really caring about what the kids do or how they perform. You're caring about those contracts. Okay. And you get in that position because one of the kingmakers puts you in that position, then it's a springboard to move up further.
I tell you what, man, I was in, I ran for school board 4 years ago, and my election was over 5 minutes after they counted the early voting and the mail-in voting. It was done. I'm, this person had like a 37% gap. You can't come back from that. So we did a little research, and the thing is, the numbers never set right. When you go and you look at Maria T. Jackson versus Rodney Ellis, the numbers did not sit right. The early ballots were just astronomical. And then I want to scare some people, because like in the last election, the one prior to that, there were more early ballots in a runoff election than they had in the general when Obama ran. Nobody really votes in a runoff. People don't come back to the polls. So how do you have more early ballots in a runoff election than you had in a general election when the president of the United States was up to bat?
Yeah.
You're right.
And why can't Kim Ogg go over with a request letter like we do for this information in that election, that specific election?
You can't go over and ask for that because when you look at some of the people that worked her campaign, it's some of the people that Colleen is finding.
And that's why we did not turn any of this over to the county officials, because the people that we're finding that we don't believe are honest in the elections are some of the people paid by people that are supposed to be enforcing the laws in our county. And like one of them is, he's a constable. His name is Sherman Ingleton or something. Is that right? Sherman Ingleton.
Which district?
He's a constable in Harris County. His campaign financials show that he paid Gloria Palmer and Ray Jones in the 2020 election. So certainly couldn't expect, him to be. It would be very difficult for him to be honest and unbiased if he was investigating them. So we have to turn it over to the state. That's our only hope.
And the sad part is, you're supposed to be able to deal with your county.
Right.
But when you find violations of the law, you go and you report them, and they do nothing about them.
Right.
And then people want to think that the Colleen Veras, the Chuck Marlers, the Gary Monroes, the Aubrey Taylors, that we're crazy. Oh, there was no cheat. But yeah, if there was one, the way I feel, if there was one ballot that was harvested, that was one too many. And slowly but surely, the state of Texas is catching them, and they're prosecuting them.
Well, what we're finding is the state of Texas isn't catching them. Citizens in that area are doing their own investigations and then turning it over to the Secretary of State, who turns it over to the Attorney General. The Attorney General's office is not out investigating these unless someone has filed a complaint and collected enough data to actually force an investigation. And that's what Chuck is helping us do. Because I thought, like if I'm sitting at the bank going through the ATM and some big pickup truck pulls up and starts chaining the ATM to the back of his truck, and he's going to pull it off someplace. If I called 911, I expect a police officer to come and stop the heist. Not have somebody say, well, take all the names of everybody in the truck, get their license, take pictures of everything, prove the crime committed, and find out if they actually got any money. If they didn't get any money, then it's not a crime. So, you're sitting there going, what? This doesn't happen. Somebody comes and they investigate, and then their job is to do all this. But when it comes to voter fraud, the citizens are supposed to do it all. I don't know how to do this. I can tell on paper that something's not right. But then when Chuck comes back and says, this person died in 1991, this person died in 2015, this person died in 2010, and we were just in shock because we thought maybe they were forging a couple signatures. We never in a million years thought that it was this big, because every single one of the applications that we turned over to Chuck and his partner this time have all been fraud. Every single one. And we're on our second stack with them. And it's insane that citizens have to do this, but if we don't do it, nobody else will. And, if we just Jerry, I'm sure there's a million things you and I don't agree on and how to solve problems. But if everybody is just elected honestly and we have honest discussions, we don't always agree, but at least you can go to sleep at night and we're still neighborly to each other. If there's a flood, I don't ask my neighbor, how did you vote, before I decide if I'm going to help him in a flood, and he doesn't do the same to me. We just help each other because we live on the same street. But in elections, it's gotten really weird. Everybody, it's all hateful. And if you say, I'm not sure something's right, then you're some kind of conspiracy theorist. All we want to do is stop it. So in the next election, people don't say, well, we think it's fraud, because we've stopped the fraud. And that's, I never thought it was this big. I never in a million years thought it was this big.
Well, I'm going to tell you what one of the problems is. And, one, the African-American community has a problem with good white people calling out the fraud in their communities. So they want to act like you the devil.
Well, that's okay.
They want to act like the Republicans are the devil because somebody's calling out fraud. Well, hold on a second. I live in the community. I live in the African-American community. I'm calling out the fraud. So what you going to call me? What you going to call me? The bottom line is being done. It's affecting the elections. You people don't get it, that your crime rate is a result of that. Your crime rate is a result of these elections being tainted. Putting these people in office that are not qualified to sit in office and do what they need to do. So the African-American community, because I got to say it because y'all can't, they have a problem with white people calling out the fraud on their black elected officials. Well, guess what? you said it in the beginning. This ain't about Republican or Democrat. This is about who gonna pay them the most money.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? But in my community, ain't no white person representing me. A black person represents me. And you ain't doing your job. You done cheated to get in there, and then you get in there and you still don't do your job. They have a problem with white America calling out the fraud in the black community. But if you look at the playbook across the country, they're running the same playbook in all the African American communities. They're running the same playbook. Our communities look like third world countries. Our schools are failing. Crime is through the damn roof. And then we can't figure out what the problem. Oh, maybe it's the kids. They need to pull their pants up. No. You need to look at these elected officials who ain't being nothing but recycled.
Mm-hmm.
They're being recycled. They move from position to position. All you got to do is every night, on Facebook, I see politicians doing their campaign fundraisers, and you see the same usual suspects at the campaign fundraisers.
Mm-hmm.
These are the people that say, okay, this is what we want. This is what we do. And then you wake up and then you don't understand why your community is being gentrified. Because these recycled politicians are playing a very bad game. Now, look, I want to have a little fun tonight, y'all.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Chuck, I think, Colleen, you got a recording, right?
Yes, but I'm going to have to go in the other room for a minute and get my passwords to get in there.
While she's going to get that, Gary, I'll
excuse me.
To go back to what you were saying a while ago, what's happening, or it's not just everybody's at fault. There's white Republicans that ran Harris County and knew this was going on in the black neighborhoods, and they didn't care. They didn't care they were getting cheated. They didn't do a damn thing about it.
Because it didn't affect them.
It didn't affect them. I don't care. Let one of these crooks run the black neighborhood. They didn't care. So there's fault to go around everywhere. In other words, everybody needs to care about cheating and stealing going on in everybody else's neighborhood, because if it ain't right in your neighborhood, it ain't right in the neighborhood next to you.
Well, I tell you what, man. Colleen's what we finna do.
I'm working on
it. I think is Chuck. Are you on that recording?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Chuck went and interviewed somebody. See, we ain't gonna keep talking this game. We ain't gonna keep letting you hear from us. We're gonna let you hear from the people who did not vote. They don't have a clue this is going on.
And what people need to realize who say, well, they were probably cheating and voting Democrats in. Yeah, that's true. But guess what? The first person they cheated, or the first area they cheated, was Democrats, because they did the cheating in the primary before they did it in the general election. So the first people getting cheated in this ballot harvesting is Democratic voters, because they don't get to decide who goes into a position when you can get 10% of your vote cheating.
And a 10% bump in voting can get you over the hump in an election that doesn't require a lot of votes to win anyway.
Mm-hmm.
If I get a 10% bump in a school board election, I'm good.
And then think about it like this. So you get the 10% cheat. So you get to determine who the county clerk is, and then you get to determine that they get to determine who's going to set and monitor the absentee ballots coming in. And so now you can get even more than 10% vote, because they can get rid of votes.
Well, like I said in the beginning, that black folk have a problem with white folk calling out the cheat in their neighborhood. And that's the reason a lot of them don't want to listen. You don't have to listen, but if you live in Harris County, it ain't gonna be a safe place to live in about 3 years. It's already rough. In 3 years, you ain't gonna be able to live there, period. You ain't gonna be able to live there, period. So, it is what it is. Chuck Marler is a good dude. Chuck Marler gets the truth. And for those that don't want to hear the truth, you ain't gonna hear nothing Chuck saying anyway, because you have a problem with Chuck being white. I don't. because I want a fair election when I run. Am I connected to Chuck because of I'm running for school board? Hell no. Do I know Colleen Vera personally? Hell no.
Nope.
But she has the same concerns that I do as a American citizen. These people are stealing our democracy.
Colleen, let us know when you're ready.
Technology is not my thing.
No problem.
How do you, when you play it on your phone, what program do you use to play it? It wants me to pick a program.
Well, it doesn't matter. Whichever one you think will work. It doesn't matter.
I don't know.
Just choose the first one.
But Jerry, I'll tell you what, if somebody will get me the documents from the Republican primary, I would love to go through them and see if there's any fraud over there. I just can't afford it. It's really expensive. And that's one thing that makes me so mad is we're supposed to have open government, but this has cost almost $10,000. And, we have people that are donating and stuff, but the average citizen can't look. And I wish I could see all of them so we can start picking and choosing which ones we think are fraud, but I can only afford one stack. So we got the one when you were talking about some of the numbers don't add up. If you look at the percentage of somebody, like the percentage that came in for a certain candidate in the absentee ballots, we have some that 80% of the absentee ballots were for one candidate. But when the people voted in person, it's only like 50% or 60%. Now that's weird because usually if, when people win, it's a pretty close percentage among all of the voters. It's not just only people who are sending it in by mail love you, and the people who show up in person just think you're okay. That usually is not how it works. It's usually pretty even across the board. And so we picked the two elections where we thought were pretty big anomalies in the absentee ballots, and that's the ones we chose to look at because that's where we thought we might find something. It's not that we just pick and choose somebody because we don't like them. When we're looking at spending money, it's got to be where you're most likely to find something.
And you found a treasure trove.
Well, if they had not put them all in one envelope, we wouldn't have been able to connect them all. In 2018, we found the same thing, but we couldn't prove that they were done by the same person. But when they put them all in the same envelope and put their real name on the return address, it makes it pretty easy to show that they're all together. So I restarted it. I'm going to try it again. I might have to get a family member to come and help me in a minute. Let's see.
Y'all bear with us, man. I got locked out of my. Oh no, you fine. Got locked out of my Airbnb. Just got back to Minneapolis, so we trying to improvise, but we gonna be okay, y'all. Y'all sit back because y'all really need to hear this. You really need to understand it, so that when it's time for the elections, you know who to go vote for. So as we get, we keep doing this, it's gonna get better and better and better, and it's gonna shock you all the way down the board. This is major. Right now, the big issue in the state of Texas is SB7. Special session starts tomorrow, if I'm correct. Am I right, Chuck?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And it'll be SB1 probably. There's a special session will have a new number.
Okay. So the thing is you got folks in there battling about the voter integrity laws. Now, they call them two things. They call them the voter integrity laws. They call them the voter suppression, Jim Crow 2.0 laws. Well, I'm on the voter integrity side because I've caught the cheating. So there's nothing they can tell me to make me believe that you seriously have a voter suppression law. I mean, when you talk about Jim Crow, somebody posted a document last night where it showed what black people had to go through when they went to the polls. It was a test that they had to take.
Mhm.
And if you got one question wrong on the test, then you could not vote back in the civil rights era. Ain't nobody doing that right now. These people have a problem with the law changing because they've upped the criminal penalties. And they don't want the criminal penalties tied to this law so that they don't go to jail.
Well, another thing that I keep seeing is that this law would reduce the polling locations in minority communities. Well, you know who did that? It's not this law. When we went to countywide polling, in the old days, we always voted in our precinct. So there were, a couple thousand homes in one area. You could walk to where you needed to vote. But then when our county chose to go to countywide polling, they can consolidate all these districts. And so we have less locations open. And it's not the law, that it's the people who went with countywide polling. It would be the way it always was if we hadn't done countywide polling. So they can't be blaming it on this law because it had nothing to do with it. I'm sorry, I'm having a terrible time with this, trying to play it. Let me see.
If it's in an email, yeah, you could go through your email through your phone.
Maybe, I tried on my other computer. Oh, try to play it through my phone?
Yeah, go to your email. If it's in an email, go to the email through your phone. Okay. And then just click it and play it, and it'll come up.
Okay, well, I will try this. And this would be, this is the lady, her name is Sylvia Thomas, and we could not find her when we were trying to find an application, a signature to match her application. We couldn't find anything about her. And then Chuck came and said, I think the lady lives in New Orleans. That's where she votes, and that's where her homestead is. So Chuck called her, and this is the recording that he made when he called her. Let's see if this plays.
Y'all bear with her. She not tech savvy. She gonna get it up. To get the community to vote for them, and then when they win, they turn around and they do nothing for the voters. That's exactly what they do. They use fear as a means to get people to come to the polls. Jim Crow 2.0. They try to instill fear in you that they're going to take you back to the 1960s, which is a lie, which is a flat out lie. And I still ask, if the voter integrity laws were so bad, right? Why didn't they walk out on the gun bill, which will directly affect the African American community? Gun bill. They didn't walk out on the gun bill because they cut the deal in the back room on the gun bill. That's why they didn't walk out. So the thing is, we got to wake up and see what these people are doing, man. And it shouldn't take some good white people to come and tell us what they're doing. We know what they're doing. Y'all walking around on eggshells right now in Harris County because of the crime. That's a direct result of your school system not being right. That's a direct result of nobody being proactive before the crime happens to try and help these people. Chuck, give me some insight.
Yeah, it's just, if you look at a primary or an election where it's tight and close, where a place flip-flops, a district flip-flops between this person this cycle, another person next cycle, those areas have the best services because people have to fight for the vote. Areas where people have been in charge for 20 years, the same person, they have the worst services, the worst situation. It's the most important thing you can do is vote. I know people say it doesn't sound that important, but it is, because all laws are voted on, written by people you elect. All laws are administered by the heads of the different agencies that you elect. So, everything you deal with when it comes from the government or the state or the city or the county is somebody you've elected. So if they're cheating to get in those spots, that's immense power to screw you over or not to take care of your area, their area, or the situation.
Well, you know what's amazing, man? I've always said whenever I got help for my community, it was either from a white person or it was from a Republican. Why should I have to go to somebody on the Republican side to help me with an issue in a Democratic neighborhood? Why should I? Well, at that point, I mean, I'm desperate. I got to do what I got to do. And by me doing that, I learned that all this, white people ain't that fucked up, man. They got some black people just as fucked up as white people. But then I learned something major. That all these myths that they told me about the Republican Party, I don't see it. I don't see some of them. I don't give a damn what nobody say. I'm still the same Monroe that grew up in 3rd Ward, Texas. But you know what? I can work with some of these Republicans. I can't work with all of them, just like I can't work with all them Democrats. But just because somebody's a Republican don't mean that they the devil. It don't mean that they the devil. I want the same schools in my community that they have in theirs. I want less crime in my community like they have in theirs. I want my community to be beautified instead of gentrified, just like theirs. But the people we got representing us, that ain't their game plan, bro. That ain't what they want to do. That is not their game plan. And there's no way in hell you can sit in office for 15 to 20 years and tell me you can't accomplish a goal. I don't believe that. I don't believe that. They get what they want done when they get it done. So, if you waiting for me as an African-American man to just sit here and defend these black corrupted officials who are just as corrupt as the white ones, but if you want me to defend these black corrupted officials, that is not going to happen. I'm going to spank their ass like I spank everybody else's. Because enough is enough. The murder rate is crazy right now, Chuck. Mm-hmm. It's crazy right now. And if we don't do something, one of you out there watching may become a victim of one of these violent crimes. Or maybe one of your children or somebody in your family. And it's all because we keep putting the same people in office and they don't have a clue. They'll come arrest you, but they want to go arrest a crooked politician. Let you miss a court date for running a stop sign and see if you don't have a warrant for your arrest. But we can bring them information that shows that these people violated state and federal law and they do nothing.
Yeah. Speaking of crime, okay, so Maria T. Jackson, who used to be a judge, would not have allowed this bullshit bail reform to continue. In other words, this bail reform initiated and pushed by Ellis, that's 50% of this crime going on in Harris County right now. There was this myth that was pushed around that, hey, we're going to help out people that can't afford bail. Okay. And so instead of saying, hey, we'll work with the bail bondsman and people that are doing this professionally to vet people and to get relatives and information on these people who are going to get out, they just said, nah, we're not going to make certain Certain groups are not going to have to pay any bail. Okay. And we're just going to let them out on a promise. So on a piece of paper, they just say, this is where I live. And I've been doing criminal defense and working a bunch of cases. And I would say 80% of those addresses that are filled out are inaccurate and a lie. Okay. And so you're letting somebody out who's committed other felonies, who's on trial currently for other cases, and you're dumping them back on the street, okay? And you're not vetting any of the information they give you, and they don't have to put any skin in the game to get back out. They don't have to put a car up. They don't have to put a house up. Their mom doesn't have to put a house up. So they have nothing. They've already, got 5 or 6 cases. They have nothing that guarantees they're going to show up for court the next time.
Well,
and this is what Ellis wanted.
For me, but I think that's what he wanted. But I think that he didn't think it would get this bad.
I think he didn't care. I don't think he cared because he lives in a nice neighborhood. He lives around other $1 million houses. There's people that patrol his neighborhood.
Yeah, private security.
He don't live in a bad part of town. I can guarantee you that.
Well, I tell you what, I think that the number of bails a person should get, this is just me. This is not Chuck. This is just me.
Mm-hmm.
You should get 1 bail.
Mm-hmm.
If you violate the terms of the bail, you should go to jail and you don't get a bail. Your bond is revoked. This is the way the game is supposed to be played. So when you have folks out on 7 or 8 bonds that murder babies, come on, who you gonna blame that on?
Well, you've had people out you've had people that got arrested, and they had other charges against them. Then they get arrested for abusing or stalking their wife or girlfriend, and then they kill them. They get out on bail and they kill them. That's happened in Harris County.
Well, for a long time, I hadn't seen nobody really get a hell of a bail, except for this kid the other day that killed the guy and the girl and the little baby. Mm-hmm. They gave him $1 million bond, I think it was, but then they revoked it. The thing was, he didn't need a bond. He had already been out on 7.
I know.
7 bonds. You're getting people being killed by people that are out on 12 bonds. Whose fault is that in Harris County? Rodney Ellis. Now, a lot of people gonna get mad. Oh, the white man up there, he don't want bail reform. He didn't say that. We have a problem with people getting out on multiple bonds. They don't deserve to be out of jail and these are not people that are getting out on parking tickets. These are people that are getting out on multiple violent bonds, violent crime bonds. They done murdered somebody. Oh, they done robbed a store. They done robbed the goddamn T-Mobile, phone store with a gun. They are getting out on multiple violent felony bonds. And then they get out and they finally just kill somebody.
Well, and two, it's an issue of, I'm not against being fair and working with people on bail reform, but you don't punch holes in the boat and claim that you're fixing the boat. I mean, there's other ways to figure out solutions to these problems. One example is exactly what you said. Okay, you get 1 chance at bond, and if you're indigent and you're going to have an indigent attorney, you get an indigent bond. But you screw that up, hey, nobody to blame but you.
Well, here's the crazy part. Which amendment? I think is it the 4th Amendment that says that they will not get excessive bonds, or is it the 4th or the 6th?
I don't know which amendment it is, but yeah. So in other words, you can't. Bonds are supposed to be based on a reasonable amount that you can pay. Okay. And factors can be put in there based on the level of the crime. You know, you went in a school and you shot 10 people. All right. No, your bond's going to be, you know, horrendous. But
I mean, when you go and you murder somebody, like in the murder in South Lawn.
Mm-hmm. You cut out there for a second. But no, Rodney Ellis is to blame for 50% of the crime that's going on in this county with bail reform. He come up with a stupid idea. He pushed it. And now we've got all these problems. And anybody that was going to fix it, he tries to keep them from getting elected. So all these judges that follow along with Ellis, you're going to take the heat in 2022 for following his stupid lead. A lot of these judges could start doing something about this situation, and they could pay more attention to these bonds they're giving out. They have a lot of leeway and they're not using it.
Okay, we got Colleen back, man.
Okay.
Yes. I've got you back, and I have the audios ready on my computer. I actually figured it out.
Okay.
So I'm ready to play the lady Sylvia Thomas. Are y'all ready?
Yes.
Okay.
This is Marler, representing Houston, and I was trying to stop some people that were committing fraud on some of the people that I've come across, and I was wondering if you had a minute because I think somebody was committing fraud against you. Wow. They got a Sylvia Thomas with your info, basically your date of birth and stuff. Voting in Harris County, and then I looked and I said, I don't think she votes in Harris County. She lives in Orleans Parish, so I think somebody's voting for you in Harris County using your info.
Wow. Well, I am well, she don't live in direct in Harris County. She lives Lafayette or somewhere close in that area. That's one of them. But I got nephews, nieces, yeah.
Well, again, I'm a private investigator, so I'm a group of citizens that dig in this on our own. But I'll tell you what I found, and you tell me if this is accurate or not, because they've got a Sylvia Thomas, date of birth 2/19/1940.
That's correct.
That supposedly lived at 10441 Bournham Street, Houston, Texas, and has been voting for the past decade here in Harris County.
Well, what? I've been away from Harris County. I used to live right there in Houston, Texas.
Yes, ma'am.
I first went to Section 60, somewhere around there, and I stayed there for 26 years, so I've been out of Houston that long. So it only could have to be someone in my family that would know that.
Well, the person that supposedly signed you up was Tomar Bishop. Do you know a Tomar Bishop?
No, not, don't ring a bell.
Okay. And so the other person that signed you up was a Gloria Palmer. Does that ring a bell?
I know a Gloria. I don't know. She got married, so.
Yeah, she might have had a different last name. I forget.
Right. She lived in Houston, and I like this practically.
Okay.
For the whole time that I was there, he stayed on that one same street.
Was her last name Blake? Maybe? Gloria Blake? Or does that ring a bell, Blake?
No.
Okay. Well, so basically, that somebody's registered, as you voting for you every cycle over here in Harris County. And so we're going to let the officials know that this isn't you and somebody's ripping you off. So at some point, somebody may contact you just to verify, yes, this is your name and date of birth, that you're Orleans Parish and you vote over there.
That's right.
Yes, ma'am. Well, go ahead.
I said I appreciate it.
Yes,
but I don't want to too many last names again because my daughter lives there. I've got a granddaughter that lives there in Houston. No, she's on the outskirts of Houston right now.
The people that signed this fictitious person up, meaning they tried to sign somebody up that had your info. The people that signed her up was Tomar Bishop.
Tomar Bishop.
Yes, ma'am. And then the other person was Gloria.
I know Gloria. Gloria what?
Palmer. It might have been Blake at one time. That might have been.
Okay. Yeah, I know Gloria. I don't know about the Bishop part, Tomar Bishop. I don't know.
Okay. Well, I apologize that I'm called you out of the blue like this, but basically.
No, but that gives me a heads up because then I could have I have a granddaughter that lives there too.
Okay.
Yeah,
so if you want, I will text you my name and number.
Okay.
And if your granddaughter or anybody wants to call me and ask me questions about it, they can feel free. Again, I'm a private investigator. I just dig through stuff and then we give it to the authorities to remedy the situation so somebody's not ripping you off. Basically.
Okay, well, if they're doing that, what else are they doing?
Exactly. Who knows what else they're doing? Exactly. Okay. And so I appreciate your time. And just to clarify, you are in Orleans Parish and vote over there?
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Sylvia Thomas, and I appreciate you giving me your time.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Bye.
Okay, well, it's obvious that this lady had no clue that anybody had applied for a ballot by mail or name. And what's interesting is the lady the Gloria, when she said she remembered someone named Gloria, is another one of the voters that we're going to listen to next is named Gloria. Her last name's Chambers, and she lived right down the street from Sylvia Thomas way back when. She passed away in 2010, and this is the application that they sent in for her. Again, it was signed by Tomar Bishop and mailed by Gloria Palmer, and you can see the lady's name is Gloria Chambers, but we found out she passed away in 2010. So the next recording is talking to her daughter. And got it? A little louder, I think. Okay.
Hey, Ms. Turner. This is Chuck Marler. I'm a private investigator, and I'm trying to call people to confirm related to some elderly people. Some of them have passed away. People have been cheating and voting and using their information, and so I wanted to call and double check to make somebody was doing absentee ballots for Gloria Chambers. Date of birth is 2/28/1946. And somebody's been voting for her recently. And so I had found that she had passed away, unfortunately, back in 2010. And so I looked and found that she had a daughter, which would be you. And so I just kind of, one, wanted to tell you that, and two, confirm that what I had found that she had passed away back in 2010 was accurate.
Yes, that's accurate.
Okay. And again, my name's Chuck Marler. I'm a private investigator. And so I've been working to expose some of the voter fraud that's been going on in Harris County. And so that's why I've got like a stack of people that I've been going through. And I'll just let you know on this absentee form, let's see, Tamar Bishop is the person that went and got the absentee ballot and supposedly gave it to a Gloria Chambers. And the address they used was 1055 Barnham Street, which I believe was her address at one time.
Yes, it was, but I don't know any Tamar Bishop.
Okay, and the other person that's listed on the envelope, because what they do is some of these people will go and fill out, they'll find people that passed away and they'll vote for them. They'll fill out, try and get an absentee ballot for them. And they have to mail off saying, hey, I'm requesting an absentee ballot for this person. And Gloria Palmer is the person that mailed in the form to get the absentee ballot. I don't know if either of those names ring a bell. You said that
Neither one of them right there.
Okay. And so and your how do you say your first name? I apologize.
Tamikia.
Okay. So if at some point in other words, what I do is I get it all together. In other words, I'm kind of working for myself doing that. But when I get this together, I'm going to give a packet to the officials, and then they're going to want to verify what I've come up with to make sure it's accurate or whatever. But you would be okay if somebody called you, I guess, a state official or county official at some point to confirm basically what I did.
That's fine, because we don't know either one of those people.
Okay, and I'm sorry, to be the bearer of bad news, but yeah, somebody's kind of abusing your mother's stuff. So I want to stop people from doing that kind of thing.
That's really.
Yes, ma'am. And I appreciate your time.
No problem.
All right. Thank you so much.
And you can see this, one of the reasons that these are so similar, if you notice on their documents, it says they have no phone. Now, who nowadays doesn't have a phone? They don't have any email address or any way to contact them by email. And then, of course, Tamar Bishop signed all of them. But it's just really interesting that they would be dumb enough to put no phone in the same handwriting and put the NA under any email addresses and that kind of stuff, because that was one of the repetitive patterns that we saw. Everybody has a phone number. I mean, even if you live in an assisted living center, you might not have a phone, but there's the phone number to the center. And so it was just really funny. It's like, you'd think if you were going to commit a crime like this, you wouldn't be dumb enough to write no phone on all of them exactly the same way in the same handwriting. That you might be a little more creative. The last one is another one of the voters. The voter's name is Jesse Burks, who passed away in 2015, I believe. And it's Chuck talking to the daughter.
Who is this?
Hey, Jacqueline. This is Chuck Marler. I'm a private investigator.
Hey, private investigator. What can I do for you?
Yes, ma'am. Hey, I've been working checking out where there's a group of people that are going and doing absentee ballots for people that have passed away and voting for them. Now, who they're voting for, I don't know. But there's a group of us that are gathering up this information and giving it to the Texas Attorney General. General's office. And so I just wanted to check with you because Jesse Burke's information came up where they recently did absentee ballots for him. And so I have had information that he passed away, unfortunately, November 4th, 2015.
Okay.
And they've got him, is that correct, one?
Yeah.
Okay. And then two, they've got him, the place he's supposedly at, which is probably an old address of his, is 10,514 Barnham Street.
And he no longer has that house because that house belongs to the bank for a reverse mortgage.
Okay. Have you ever heard, there's two people that were filling this out, doing this, and I want to know if you've ever heard of these individuals. So I'm not accusing you of anything. We know who's pretty much been doing this, and we're just confused as to how they find all these people to do this to.
Okay.
Tomar Bishop is the lady that filled out the form, requesting an absentee ballot. And I don't know if you've ever heard of that lady's name.
You say Tomar
Bishop, yes, ma'am.
I ain't never heard of them.
And then there's the person that mailed it is the Gloria Palmer that mailed it.
I don't know nobody by that name neither.
Okay. And by the way, Jacqueline, I just want to make sure this is accurate because we're going to give a stack of these. We found numerous that this has happened to, so it's not just your father, but they're taking advantage, obviously. And the way the system kind of works, I understand, is they're, whoever the highest bidder is that pays them to go out and get all these fraudulent votes, it's who they're pulling the tab for. So,
Okay.
But I've got you listed as Jacqueline Burks. Are you his daughter?
Okay, first, what investigation office are you with?
So I'm a private investigator. I used to be in law enforcement, and now I'm a private investigator. And so there's a group of us that's been digging through. We found problems with these absentee ballots. And so we're going to give it to the Texas Attorney General's office to work. In other words, we've been working with them, giving them lists.
Okay, this is what I want you to answer, that you refuse to answer because I asked you a direct question.
Okay.
I was a private investigator. I could be a private citizen of the United States, and I might have all of Jess's information. So I'm going to ask you again.
Okay.
What private investigation company are you working for? I understand that you are an individual, you are an entrepreneur.
Yes, ma'am.
What's that name?
Legals Services. That's legals with an S, and then services with an S as well.
Well, where are you located at with this legal service?
In Houston, Texas.
Where in Houston, Texas?
I'll give you my address. It's 8321 Hempstead Road, Houston, Texas.
Okay.
77008. And this is my cell phone, too, as well.
Okay, gotcha. I'll be more than glad to get you some information.
Yeah, no problem.
You got to be kind of skeptical about this.
So that's, and I agree. I'm not trying to, it's easy for me to say I'm not trying to pull one over for you, but obviously you need to verify. And what I'll do is, if this is a cell phone, I will take a picture of the absentee application for an absentee ballot, and I'll text it and forward it to you.
Okay, that'd be great.
Okay, just so you have it, and you're free to talk to anybody about it that you want. You can complain to the election commission, or like I said, we're going to go to the AG. So at some point, you'll probably get a call from some official at the AG's office, whether it be a state trooper or one of the attorneys that works for them.
But y'all can always make y'all inquire by mail.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. And what address hold on one second. What address would you like me to put in?
P.O. Box 15982.
You might stop it there so we don't give her out her address. You might stop it there, Colleen.
Okay.
So you telling me that you got one person been dead for 11 years. They never fell off the voter rolls. and they voted in 5 elections, and they've been dead.
Well, I don't have, I have not received the information about them actually voting. I don't have that information yet. Um, the what we did find is we think there were typographical errors when someone back, most of these people registered to vote back in like 1975 or 1976, and they lived here many, many years in the same house. And, you know, back in those days, people actually, you know, typed everything by hand. And I think someone put in one digit wrong on their date of birth. And that's why the computers didn't connect when they passed away. Their date of birth did not match exactly with the voter registration rolls. So, like, one of the ladies was born on the 30th, but her voter registration says the 28th. And so that one little typographical error is why the computer didn't connect and didn't remove these people. Normally, their people are removed when they pass away. But we found small typographical errors in most of these voters, and I think that's probably why there was a mistake and they weren't removed. But we found many. We started looking at people that are on the voter rolls now whose birthdays are like 1905, 1910, that kind of stuff. There's many of them. They just haven't been removed because nobody's cleaning up our voter rolls. So that's another whole issue that we've got to work on. Another mistake we found was when they first went to electronic media to store all of the voter registration information. If they were missing a date, the computer did an automatic January 1st, 1900 as any missing date. So many voters, that's their birth date that's listed in the voter registration files. And so when they do pass away, of course, that date doesn't match the Social Security office, and so they're not removed. And so somebody's got to go in and clean all this up. It's just, I mean, I can't do it, but we're going to have to put a team of people together to start looking at these and taking them off the roll so somebody can't abuse them again.
So Gary, how do you think that these ballot harvesters got access to something like the van system, which would have shown all of these people that didn't vote?
Oh, the van system gonna show you everything. The van system gonna show you the name. It's gonna show you the address. It's gonna give you a first and a second phone number for them. It's gonna tell you what elections they voted in. You know, that van system is a monster. So they can use that van system to their advantage.
But these ballot harvesters, somebody gave them access to a system like that.
You have to give them access.
That's how they found these people. In other words, these people to take advantage of.
You got somebody that has the main login for the van system. And then what they have to do is they have to give them access to the system. So they can't even get in the system unless, you know, if I had the van and I wanted you and Colleen to work for me, I would have to give you access to the van system. And then once you got access, I'm talking about you just open King Tut's gold mine because you know where every single voter resides. And if they don't reside there, it's gonna have the last address on there. So if you doing some dirtiness, you got all the information right there in the palm of your hand with the van system.
Well, and that's one reason why we would like to have some kind of identification when people vote by mail, so that somebody who doesn't have this information, like the van system, you already know their all of their information. You know their date of birth, you know their phone number, you know all those things. So you can pretend to be them. If we had some kind of ID or, you know, the last 4 digits of their Social Security number, something that they have to add so that only the voter knows, and that the person who just has public information does not know, and so that we know it's the voter's actual ballot. But that's one of the laws that we're trying to get passed, because now we know how easy it is to be fraudulent and to steal somebody's identity when it comes to mail ballots.
Well, let me play devil's advocate, but you know that the laws that you're trying to get passed, they're saying what you just said, which makes totally good sense to me. Well, that's voter suppression.
Right. Well,
It's not.
I mean,
It's
I
not
had to
voter
show an
suppression.
ID. But I mean, I show an ID when I even pick up a prescription, and they don't call that, medical suppression. They want to make sure that I have the right prescription for the person and the illness that it's been prescribed for. And ballots should be the same way. We should have some kind of honesty in our voting system, so that we don't end up like Venezuela or someplace like that.
Well,
I mean,
and
I
there's
don't understand when you listen to these people, and you know that their deceased parents' ballot was stolen. You think they would be upset enough to want some kind of ID so it didn't happen again? I don't
And
understand why somebody doesn't want to
it
protect these people.
well, it goes back to where you got judges, you got county, city officials watching this program. You hearing it right now, but nobody will step up and do or say nothing about it
Mm-hmm.
because
well,
they benefit from it.
well, and Gary, how racist is it to say that black people can't have ID, can't get ID? I mean,
Say,
that in
man,
itself is
you
racist
need
to
a
say, oh well, black people can't do as much as white people, therefore, it's a problem.
well. First of all, I think when they start talking about folks can't get IDs, well, they call us people of color. So I
Mm-hmm.
really think they talking about all the illegal immigrants that they letting in here that can't get IDs. Because if you a black person, you get ID. You get ID to get food stamps. You get ID to get a social security check. When you go get a library card, you need ID. You cannot go into a school building unless you have an ID.
Mm-mm.
So when you got a problem with the mayor and you go to city council, don't you have to stand in that line downstairs and present your ID first? So I think the ID is for the illegals that are coming here that they're trying to get into the voting system so that they can stack the game.
Makes
But as an
sense.
African American, as a black person, as an African American, that's just straight up bull talking about you can't get no ID. You get it for everything else.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and they even make allowances for people that don't have ID, where they have to show electric bill and they have to show some other stuff. So they even bend over backwards to allow other forms of ID.
The
But a ballot
Democratic
harvester
Party,
can't.
the Democratic Party uses the fear factor. This is why they're calling the voter integrity laws voter suppression laws. They use fear to get these people to the polls so that they can vote. They use fear to get them to the polls because of Donald Trump. And now you got Joe Biden who ain't doing a damn thing for black people. So are you going to be scared to go into the polls and vote him out? Because he's not doing nothing. But they use fear. That's what they do.
Well, and I would go even a step further with Biden. He was getting stomped in the primaries, Where was the first place where it turned around for him?
South Carolina.
Where I guarantee you, if you dug into it, there's a huge ballot harvesting ring like there is in Harris County going on.
Jim Clyburn in South Carolina is the reason that Joe Biden is one of the biggest reasons Joe Biden sits there now.
Yep.
Because Joe Biden was not the guy that, for me, it was nothing he could do. You've been in Washington almost 50 years. You haven't done anything but hurt people of color. So there's nothing that Biden could tell me that could sway me. There's nothing that Kamala Harris could tell me that could sway me. It wasn't going to happen. And Kamala just got dog walked in the presidential race. Nobody wanted her. But now it is what it is. And they're screaming. They're all over the country about voter suppression because they know one thing for sure. In 2022, you're going to lose everything. And now they can blame all their failures on the Republican Party.
They're very good at that.
Oh, they've mastered the game.
Mm-hmm. And
But this is one black man that they can't run game on.
Well, they can scream and yell all they want at me. I don't really care. But I mean, this whole hatred, it makes me really angry. We have 4 black grandkids, and the oldest one is the sweetest, most sensitive little girl in the world. And when she came home from 1st grade, and here she's from a mixed race family, she never cared about race. She came home on Martin Luther King Day from 1st grade, and she'd been crying. And her mom asked her what was wrong, touched her head, thought maybe she had a fever or something. And she said, "Mom, am I black?" And she said, "Well, yes, honey. I thought that was kind of a given. You look like your dad, and like your brothers and sisters." And she said, "Well, then, Mom, why do you and Grandma and Grandpa hate me?" And I was so mad. I'm like, what in the world are you learning in school, dear? I mean, how horrible for her to learn that her mother hates her and her mother's family hates her because we're a different skin color than she is. And that somebody is teaching our children this garbage and that has anything to do with the color of her skin is ridiculous. But that poor child heard it at school from her teachers and actually, for a little bit, believed it until we explained to her the whole mess, and now she doesn't believe it anymore. But it was just really, really sad that someone has taken a child who's mixed race and convinced her that one side of the family hates the other side of the family because of some ridiculous meddling in their skin. It's just insane. Just makes me mad. Sorry. I go on my rampage about that. But how dare anybody say that some of our grandchildren will be able to achieve more than others because of how much color is in their skin? That's just really stupid. Makes no sense. Has nothing to do with how well they do in school or how much they study or how hard they work in their lives. It's just going to be based on skin tone. It's just, makes me mad. Sorry. But and then to think that she cried, that poor little girl cried all day at school after being told that her family hates her. And it was just really, really sad. So I told her a little story because we have dogs. I have a tendency to rescue dogs. I'm really bad about that. If I see a stray dog, I bring it home. But we have, there were 3 of them at the time that had dark fur. So I said, you're allowed to play with Buddy, the one that's a blue heeler? And she said, no. And I said, why not? She said, because Buddy bites. I said, I know. Buddy scares me sometimes. So I said, are you allowed to play with Dixie, another one that had dark fur? And she said, well, yeah. And I said, why? And she goes, because Dixie doesn't bite. I said, well, look at them. They have the same color fur. So shouldn't you be scared of them or hate them or whatever because of their fur color? She goes, no, it's if they bite or not. And I said, that's exactly like people. You look at them and some people are nice and some people bite. So you stay away from the ones that bite you and you play with the ones that are nice. And don't judge them by their skin color because you're probably going to get bit one day if you do. So she felt better and went on to play. But I still am so upset that whatever lesson that she had at school that day, Martin Luther King is just rolling in his grave because that's certainly not the lesson he ever taught. And anyway.
Well, I tell you this here. Chuck, I see Chuck. I talk to Chuck all the time. I don't know if Chuck white or black some days. I could care less. We have something that we working on. We have some things that we work on together. That's the only thing we give a damn about.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care if Colleen is black or white. That if she's white, there's no reason for me to hate her. She's done nothing to me for me to hate her. If Colleen is a Republican, there's no reason for me to hate her. So, for those that are just that simple-minded, that tells you what the problem is. So the hatred comes from both sides, from the black side, from the white side, and it's embedded in ignorance. So if you're ignorant, then that's what it will be. I don't believe that nobody has held me back in my life from accomplishing any goals except for me. There have been no white people that have stopped me from doing what I needed to do. There have also been no white people that have forced me to do some of the things that I ended up doing. You see what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, we here. Black people, white people, we got to figure it out. But in this game that we own, Dirty Politrikz, we going to figure it out.
The more black people that vote in Harris County, the more fair the election will be. what these ballot harvesters are doing is they're voting for people that don't normally vote or are deceased or not in the area, and they're stealing their vote. And it's predominantly black people they're doing this to. So in other words, they're taking advantage of people, and the more black people that vote in Harris County, the more fair the elections will be in Harris County.
Well, and
Exactly.
when you look at the cases around the state, they tended to hang out in neighborhoods. So people have a tendency to harvest ballots in their own neighborhood. It doesn't mean it's only happening in Black or Hispanic or white neighborhoods. It means the harvester is working the people that they know in their neighborhood. And then another harvester is working in another neighborhood of people that they know. These are just the ones that we've caught because they put them in the same envelope. We don't really know from 2018, all the repetitive patterns in the handwriting, we don't really know who mailed those. In 2020, we know who mailed it. And it happened to be coming from that one neighborhood. Does not mean that it's not happening in other neighborhoods around Harris County in people of all races. It's just this is the one that we're able to prove. And that's because I know in San Antonio, it was when they caught them on videotape, she admitted she harvests the ballots, but then she picks the vote for the person who paid her the most. So it's not, it has nothing really to do with race. It's which ballots they can get. And you're more likely to go in your own neighborhood because that's
Exactly.
what you know. And that's what
I tell y'all what, man.
educate people to clean up the voter rolls in their neighborhood. Go on and make sure that people, if you bought your house 10 years ago, make sure those people aren't still on the voter rolls for your house, because we're starting to find people that they bought their house 10 years ago from some elderly person. That elderly person has now passed away, but they're still registered to vote at that house. So somebody could steal that ballot for them. So we're trying to teach people to go online and look at who's registered at your own address and your own neighbors and clean it up. If those people don't live there anymore, then contact the county and have them removed so that somebody can't steal the ballot of somebody that's deceased.
Well, I tell you what, Colleen, thank you for coming tonight.
Mm-hmm.
You're always welcome to come back anytime you get ready.
Someday we need to go have lunch or something together, but not in Minnesota.
Hey, I'm a big old boy. I love to eat, so yeah, that's a gimme there.
Okay, well, when you're back
Chuck,
in town, let me know.
And Chuck, let me know if old 5-star need to testify in this special session, because I don't have no problem showing up.
Okay.
I don't have no problem showing up, and I'm not showing up to scream Jim Crow 2.0. I'm down with voter integrity.
Well, thank you. And thank you for spreading the news for people, because people just need to know. They just need to know the truth.
Pretty much. So I tell y'all what, man, we going to get up out of here. It's another episode of Dirty Politrikz. Tomorrow I'll be back 7 o'clock. The war's on. You know what it do, man. We'll holler at you.
Okay, good night.